Welcome to the OFS video, Cleaning Headstones. Hello cousins, this is Ruth Ellis, Vice President of the Olin Family Society. Like many of you, I've visited numerous cemeteries to visit long-gone ancestors. I've traveled to many towns and cities in many states. To be honest, I'm kind of obsessed with it. I enjoy a leisurely stroll through a peaceful cemetery. But I'm not always visiting my own ancestors. I record and photograph the graves of unrelated people too. You're probably wondering why. I do a lot of work for findagrave.com, which is now owned by Ancestry.com. If you haven't used Find a Grave to find your ancestors' headstones, I highly recommend it. The goal of Find a Grave, besides accurately recording and photographing every grave in every cemetery in the world, is to share the information and photographs with descendants. This is especially handy when you live on the West Coast and your ancestors are buried in the East Coast. There is a good chance that someone has already recorded your ancestor's grave and probably photographed it as well. If the grave is recorded but there is no picture of the headstone, you can request it. And if you're lucky, someone in the local area will go out and photograph. Or someone like me who is passing by might do it also. Sometimes I'm just passing by a cemetery in some obscure place, or I'm in the cemetery visiting my own ancestor's grave, and I'll just whip out my phone, which has the Find a Grave app on it, and see if anyone has any requests for photos in that cemetery. You can't photograph headstones that do not exist, but you can at least let the descendant know that there is no marker. Sometimes I scroll through the cemetery list to see if there are any pictures missing, and I just go ahead and photograph and attach them to the record. Also on the Find a Grave app, you can record the GPS coordinates, so that if someone visits the cemetery in the future, it will show a map of exactly where that headstone is. Sometimes I find graves that are not recorded at all. Sometimes I find a husband and wife on a headstone, and whomever created the memorials on Find a Grave originally did not record the relationship as spouses. If you are intentionally visiting a cemetery, it is wise to contact the cemetery sexton in advance to find the exact locations of the graves, especially when the cemetery is huge. I've spent many hours walking the rows of a large cemetery just to find that there is no marker anyway. Good outside exercise, though. Because I am cemetery crazy and a genealogy fanatic, when I get home, I oftentimes will do a little research on people to see if I can attach other relationships to their memorial, such as their parents or children. Oftentimes, this takes me down long rabbit holes for hours, but I love it anyway. So you're wondering, what all of this has to do with cleaning headstones, right? Well, one of the things I've found when visiting cemeteries is that the etching on the headstones is sometimes obscured by moss, mold, lichen, and mildew. In the old days, before some very wise people started screaming about it on the internet and educating errant cleaners, people would just go out to the headstone and either scrape with metal putty knives, use metal bristle brushes, or pour harsh chemicals like bleach on them. Bad, bad, bad. I don't even want to think about how much damage was caused to those stones that may not be repairable, although there are now some people who are re-etching stones. Enter my cousin Mary, who started me on a new obsession, cleaning headstones. She has been doing it for a couple years and especially concentrating on veterans. She found a product called Wet and Forget that is a biological cleaner that you spray on and then let Mother Nature have her way. It may take a month or many months, but after Wet and Forget kills the offending growth, wind, rain, and snow will eventually clean that stone off. Some are harder to clean than others, and it turns out that if you soak the headstone with water, let it set, then soak it again, you can use a soft bristle brush or plastic putty knife or a popsicle stick to scrape it off. I just did this recently when I was at a cemetery and ran out of the cleaner. It worked wonderfully, but it is labor intensive. When I first started cleaning headstones with Mary, we used a hand pump sprayer like you might use for weeds on your lawn. However, when you're looking at a couple hundred headstones, you get exhausted pretty quickly between lugging it around and pumping it every couple headstones. We now have battery-powered sprayers that fit into backpacks, and that has been a game changer. I keep a bag of my headstone cleaning tools in my trunk. In it I have the plastic putty knife, a plastic bristle brush, a utility knife to clean around the flat markers that are flush with the ground, and a battery-powered air mattress inflator. I used to just use a brush to clean the flat stones, but gosh darn, every time you brush the debris off, more debris seems to float back onto it. Now I just turn on the inflator and voila, clean headstone for snapping a picture. Also, I carry a rod along to gently push into the soil to try to locate flat markers that are overgrown. There is a veteran's headstone cleaning video where they use Wet and Forget, and it has been approved by the National Cemetery Association. I think it is very important to honor our military veterans by keeping their headstones clean at least. One thing to keep in mind is that some cemetery associations and sextons are very restrictive, and you should try to get permission before you start spraying or repairing. Thank you for watching my video. There are a lot of videos and online resources for headstone cleaning. I hope you'll look into it and get to work on your ancestors' stones safely. Happy hunting!